John DeLorean wanted his 100 cars a day, and therefore that was what was planned for.
Production was increased to 80 cars a day. By Christmas 1981, the workers had built 7,000 stainless steel DMC-12s.
At the end of '81, we had a big party with all the management because we were celebrating the fact that these guys had done such a tremendous job. The company was profitable, everything was working well.
Across the Atlantic, there were events even DeLorean couldn't control. In the US, disaster struck.
Even in a country that expects severe winter weather, this storm has been something extraordinary. A city that was immobilized on the day of the snowfall is still immobilized 4 days later and could take a week to dig out.
Several states in the northern part of America were declared disaster areas. Power lines were down, factories, including Ford and General Motor factories, were closing down. They couldn't get people into work. People most certainly were not going out in a blizzard to go to a car dealership, and the interest rate in the States had gone up to over 20%. It affected people changing their cars. So the sales of cars virtually stopped.
I was in Northern Ireland for Christmas. I'd been to visit DeLorean, I think about a month before. Everything seemed to be all right. Whilst I think I was at home, that I got a message saying DeLorean hadn't got enough money to pay the wages.
Senior staff had a Christmas dinner. Congratulations were all in order during the dinner. We were talking about bonuses for the next year, you know, so obviously it was further from our minds that we were in trouble.
And there was this man DeLorean strutting the stage a few weeks before, asking me for more money and saying how brilliant it all was, and the cars were selling for a premium in the United States and everything else. I mean, it was one of the most glib PR operations I've ever come across.
And that was the last time I saw him in the factory.
No cars were selling, never mind DeLorean. So the income stopped overnight and the company ran out of money. That came as a surprise that the company failed for that reason. I had expected a lashback from quality problems, but I didn't think the weather would have stopped it.
Of the 7,000 DMC-12s built, only 3,000 had been sold. With no sales and cash drying up, the company went on a 3-day week.
There are rumours going around the factory that there's anywhere from 250 to 500 men being made redundant, but nobody has denied it or confirmed it. We have no idea of what the management are going to do about the situation, whether we'll have a job next week or the week after. And that's, there's just an air of despondency throughout the factory.
DeLorean now had to go cap in hand to the government to plead for more cash. So far he had spent over £77 million and now needed a further £40 million to weather the financial storm.
We worked too long and too hard to let a few little aberrations bother us. It's important that we reestablish our public credibility and reestablish our relationship with the government on a positive basis. And
what happens financially if you don't get any money from the government now?
Well, I think you'll be very pleased with the news that you will hear tonight. I can't tell you any more about it right now.
Will you be speaking?
Margaret Thatcher's Prime Minister was extremely worried on the one hand about the draining of public money into a very doubtful proposition, and at the same time equally worried about withdrawing support from something that in West Belfast was at least trying to get something moving in Belfast and Northern Ireland, which would be of use in a peace process.
Mr. Pryor, can I ask you, are you going to offer Mr. DeLorean any more money?
No.
None at all?
Well, I think that I must not answer that question in any other way than the way that I've answered it.
What do you think the future of the car firm is?
No, I'm not saying anything at the moment. I'm having discussions with Mr. DeLorean, and that's as far as I can go.
We would have done anything we could to have kept the business running had it been a viable proposition. I mean, if he'd had money in the bank, etc., he wouldn't have need come to me for an immediate bailout to pay the wages.
On the 2nd of January 1982, with the coffers empty, 1,100 workers were laid off at the Dunmurry plant.
I was being laid off, the factory wasn't being closed. And therefore, it was full of disappointment. It was grabbing you inside here. You were wondering, were you ever going to get back in? You were wondering, was it going to get sorted out?
remember I was a trustee of the pension fund at the time, and I remember signing so many cheques, my fingers were sore. That it was just sad to see it all happening. All unravelling, all the work that we'd put in, just unravelling before our eyes.
Your stomach was just churning inside you, and it was a nasty, nasty day. But still with a degree of hope.
With the company in financial meltdown, time was running out for John DeLorean. With one last roll of the dice, he used the New York car show to try and raise money to save his ailing company.
I don't care about the British taxpayers' money or my own money. I think the most important thing is we have some people there. This is a very, very important part of their life, and nothing in the world should be permitted to interfere with it.
No one could teach him any lessons on spin. I mean, he was very, very good. Other people have copied him.
I'm sorry I'm doing this because I don't mean to sit here and be whiny. I'm not that kind of a person. But it just breaks my heart when I see these people attack him that way, and it's just not fair. And I really think it's about time that somebody came to his defense.
Unfortunately for the DeLoreans, the man riding to the rescue was the government receiver. Nicknamed the Undertaker, Sir Kenneth Cork was renowned for liquidating companies.
DeLorean was dead against any thought that his company was going into bankruptcy, and therefore he desperately wanted to avoid that, but I saw no alternative.
We were all called into the office of the boardroom, and Sir Kenneth Cork, Paul Shule, addressed us at that time. Sir Kenneth was very supportive. He felt that there was a future for the company.
And the one thing we want to do is to keep it going. And I'm going to the States on Wednesday to see about the distribution out there. And we really do hope we can do something. We want it to go on.
The race was on to find new investors by the 31st of May or the factory would close. DeLorean was desperate and would fly anywhere and try anything to raise more cash.
Already today in the mail I got checks from Americans who want to help, one for $20 and another $10 bill. He said, hang in there.
A deal was on, then the deal was off. And eventually he ran out of banks and there was nobody that was going to help him there.
All I want to do is keep the factory open so the people can work, nothing else.
You last said that you keep the factory open. It was your last breath. Do you still stand by that?
I'm still trying.
The next thing we heard, he was visiting the Middle East and he was speaking to oil sheiks around the Arab states and so on, trying to get them to buy into the company. And there were various ones that again were, this was going to happen, and then, no, it didn't happen.
For the first time, DeLorean's charm failed, and his globe-trotting negotiations came to nothing. With no new investors in sight, the receiver was swift to act. He announced the closure of the factory.
It was clear that there was no future. I mean, it stared one in the face. One just had to take the decision.
On the 31st of May 1982, the remaining 1,300 workers were laid off.
The trade union actually told us in the end, because nobody had the guts to come and face the workforce. The trade union told us, that's it, you're finished.
I was managing one alliance at the time, and I effectively had to go around every member of the workforce that was remaining and it's basically shake her hand and say thanks, and we tried, you know.
When we got word that that's it, the factory